Hello again. Thanks for joining me. Day 5, Drawctober. Today's prompt is absent sulphur. This one has hit me absolutely for 6. I have no idea. Just got out of the shower at about 5. Came down. Said, right, what's today's prompt? Oh, absent sulphur. What? Dare say the most abstract thing I've had to do for this. And I've absolutely no idea. I've spent the last half hour just looking at the Wikipedia page for sulphur, which hasn't helped. I think I might have to go essentially quite simple with this. Go for sort of the logical way out. I wish I knew how to use 1-point perspective in Clip Studio Paint, because you can set an anchor point outside the page somehow and essentially use it as a guideline for drawing things, but I don't know how to set that anchor point because I'm gonna use a line tool. I'm gonna zoom out so that I can three-point perspective me, sorry, not 3-point, 1-point perspective me way over there. So that line and that line I'll just fudge. Doesn't have to be perfect. Would help if it met the corner though. Right. Would also help if I knew where that point over there was now, which I don't. You can probably tell where my mind's going with this by now. Now, how it goes. Alright, if I take one off the top and one off the bottom, that should do. So the ones that I put in the guidelines for, I'm now completely ignoring. Oop. Yep. This is a weird one because I may as well have gone straight to the inking phase for what I've done so far. Because it's not like in digital art, ink's any more permanent than pencil. I should know this better than I do. Nope, too close. Huh? Too close again. And then another. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure what's going on either. Well, no, I'm fairly sure what I'm doing now. Because it's literally the only thing that came to my mind with this prompt. I've now lost count. Now. Oh, that's not the tool I meant. That looks fancy. Let's just rub out some stuff I don't actually need. That's the plan. Sort of. I should have just done that, shouldn't I? Because you can also draw straight lines with a rubber. Or an eraser, rather. That's... But you have to be pretty sure of where you're putting the bugger down. So... That's as much wall as I'll need. So I judge the scale relatively well. Now then. This is where I find out if I've cocked up. I don't think I have, and it would be quite embarrassing if I have, but chunk. Chunk. Keep forgetting I can just do that. And erase a line. That would save a lot of time. Right. Now, to add some more lines back in where they make sense. So you need one. Sort of there. That looks too steep. I'm going to zoom in so I can see what I'm doing there more clearly. That, I hope, is about the right thickness. It'll do. Right. Now then. So, now the sort of vague framework of what I'm doing is there to make a bit more sense. I think today's is going to be shorter than a lot of these have been. I really should have just measured these out, shouldn't I, somehow? Oh, I don't know what I've done there. Well, I know what I've done there, but I didn't notice doing it. Whoop, no, that has to be teeny, because this tool doesn't have any pressure size sensitivity to it. And you know what? I'm gonna tweak that line there, which will mean erasing a load of these by hand. Yay. Ba-dunk. Because how off those two were in comparison with one another was going to bug me. I feel like there's way cleverer things could be done with this idea, but nothing that sort of leaps back to the idea that I'm trying to draw. Like, the absence of sulphur can do a lot of things. But none of those things you'd look at and go, oh, sulphur's absent. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be an inking layer on this one just because a pencil layer does so much of it. So, that's right, I had a perfect opportunity not to draw a human hand and I did not take it. You have too many fingers, kind sir. Please cease. Too many fingers, but not enough thumb. Enough thumbs. But no, that's not the position that thumb would be in the slightest. It's sort of more going around like that. That is a massive hand for that Sulphur to have. Which I kind of hate. But it's probably about time for that, to be honest, isn't it? We had a few... like... I don't like that tangent. We've had a few fairly normal drawings and it's about time for something else. And I think giving a box on the periodic table massive human hands is about what's called for to stop this drawing just being a bit dull. What am I doing? It's not 16.8, that's oxygen. Yes. Did I say no more human hands for the week? I might have done. How short-sighted of me. The problem is that I hear everything that you hear through these, which gives me less direction than usual to work out where sound's coming from. I think that was a cat washing themselves. Anyway. No, you'd be seeing the inside of the elbow there. Arm doesn't make sense at all. So that would be no, more like that. Except they want to be further out there, because you don't want the elbow that close to the shoulder. Oh yeah, but I'm not essentially hearing through my ears at the moment. I'm hearing through a microphone that's over here. That just went bonk. I don't actually know why. But I've got new headphones for it, so it now sounds clearer and doesn't hurt my ears as much. I've actually changed tool before going back to doing what I was doing, before interrupted by using the wrong tool. What would also help would be using this eraser, which kind of does what I've been expecting the other one to do, and I don't know why I haven't been using it all along. Anyway, back to the main attraction. Hello, Mum. It's not so much I was ignoring you as I don't have Facebook open to have heard you. Thicken that somewhat with a flat end, and then use a larger pencil to do the rest of the thickening with. And neaten that up with an eraser because it comes out with rough edges. Because I'm using a rough edge pencil for some reason. Now, I don't have music coming through these headphones, which would be a better use for them than just hearing my own voice. Because it kind of ends up getting me distracted in just listening, particularly if it has words. If it have words. Which would be fine if it weren't for the fact that in the absence of music, I instead have Timey Kangaroo Down Sport on the brain. and I'm sorry for sharing that pain with you. But I guess that's where we all are now. You know? And sorry if I keep whistling it, but that's what happens when you have a tune on the brain. So the fact that I keep whistling something and then abruptly interrupting myself to do something other than whistle what it is I'm whistling is because what I'm whistling is Tie Me Bloody Kangaroo Down Spot. I think there are things I should be more sorry for than that, sort of in the immediate vicinity of this stream. Partly for earlier giving Sulphur the atomic number and mass of oxygen, which I was quite annoyed that I'd got that wrong, not just for the fact that, you know, I have a degree in this, I should remember Sulphur's atomic number and atomic mass, but also because that 8 would have made a much better I than the S. I was planning to have a pair of eyes vertically. I can still have a pair of eyes, really, can't I? If I go for the old fridge eye approach. I think I am going to end up inking just the sulphur. There was 16 somewhere in the sulphur. It's convenient. Sulphur is essentially double oxygen, which is fairly memorable. Do a bit of erasing around here. I think I'll just erase generally around there. Go to a slightly smaller pencil so I can see what I'm doing more clearly. Well, actually quite a bit more finger that will be visible beyond that. Right. So far this month has been way better drawing, way better practice for drawing hands than I would have expected or anyone would have wanted. Which essentially means I should be better at it by now than I am. Oh, that hand's too small. Yep. That's better. Better is a term I'm learning to use loosely these days. Why? Because it's an S with an I, John. Oh, don't tell me I've put it in the wrong place. Please don't tell me I've put it in the... Thanks, John. I've put it in the wrong group. Well, I'm going to finish drawing its feet before I shift it. Now you may wonder, why am I giving Sulphur human feet? Doesn't that seem somewhat unnecessary? Valid question, but the answer is I hate drawing shoes. I don't get them. The room above this one, which is where I assume Jen is at the moment from what I can hear on the microphone, has a very creaky floor. It is currently my office when working from home. This is the back of the table. But you are right, I have put it in the wrong group entirely. Also, that foot is just wrong. That is not what Sulphur's feet look like at all. Now you see, I can't really use my feet as a model for drawing feet because I have weird feet. Or I have less common feet. There's a thing called Morton's toe, which is... which I think about a quarter of the population has it or something like that. Might be less. Or anyhow, no, it will be less because people think it's weird. And a quarter of the population is fairly normal. And wouldn't get a specific name for it. But it's a... Sorry, this is taking a bit of concentration. Why didn't I just do it right first time? Morton's toe is when your big toe is shorter than your second toe. Which I've never thought was weird because mine is. But it's uncommon enough that people don't expect it in drawings, and it looks off to most people. So if I were to draw my feet on this Sulphur, it would look weird. And I could just say, oh no, that's what Sulphur's feet do. And no one would be able to prove me wrong. Because no one knows what Sulphur's feet really do. No one's looked that closely. And go from there to position. Boomf. Okay. Nearly salvaged this. I am now double checking to make sure I've got it in the right place this time. I have, because there's chlorine, there's I can't actually remember. Argon. On the one hand, I feel like I should remember that, like having studied chemistry, but on the other hand, they're noble gases. They are quite boring to a chemist. Like, you've got a whole group of elements that are more interesting to physicists and engineers than chemists. have to be a bit shallower actually. Because they do nothing. Like the lower down ones, you get some interesting compounds off, but the upper ones just insociable bunch. Oh, I wouldn't expect it to be useful for dancing. I say that as someone who dances and has toes like this, because it's apparently the basis of it is a single extended metatarsal, which sounds like it shouldn't really be helpful. Like, it sounds like that's not a balanced way to extend a digit all on a single bone. And it also means that you're balancing on the second toe rather than as you would be with a longer big toe on the larger the larger toe that has its own musculature. You can't balance without your big toe. So it does a surprising amount of work. I'm so glad that none of these lines that ended up passing through... Oh no, I said that and then just saw the one passing through this eye here. It's okay, I'm going to end up inking the sulphur after all, aren't I? Am I? No. No, I don't think I'm going to do inking in today's, which is going to be weird, but... Oh, you can tell where that's been stretched. I've been doing that all on the shading layer. So I'm just going to swap these layers around. Shading up here, rename that to shading. That was daft. And let's go for that sort of tone for the shading. And what I said about shading yesterday, that because I don't have a colour behind it, it doesn't really make any difference that it's a multiply layer, because what multiply does is the RGB values that go into a colour, treat them as like a percentage instead. So 255, treat that as 100% or 1. Multiply layer, rather than just going on top of the layer below it, multiplies what you put on it with the colour that's on the layer below it. So for each pixel it goes, right, that's 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, and what's below it is 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. You multiply those two together, you get 0.25, 0.25, 0.25, and that's the colour that comes out of it. So multiply will always darken things that are under it, even when you use a very light tone. But it sort of keeps the saturation of the colour. Which it's occurred to me that it should actually be more like that, shouldn't it? It keeps the saturation of the colour, which just darkening it doesn't. And also it makes it slightly more like the colour that you're using to shade it. So if you use a bluish tone or a cold colour of some kind, I should use that more often, for your multiply layer, your shadows will come out colder. So then on the highlights layer, where you use screen, which kind of does the opposite, it's harder to work out, but the screen always lightens in the same way that multiply always darkens. And if you use a warm colour on that, then your highlights come out warmer and your shadows come out cooler, which sort of balances it out. And no, I'll have you lit from above as well, because I've already done the shading on the eye to make you lit from above. This isn't going to make a huge amount of sense lighting wise, but hey, it is what it is, you know? I can't believe I missed that. There we go. That's a bit better. We were on the shading layer. There's more. There's more, and it's on the pencil layer, because that's where the pencil stuff is. These are weird shadows to try and figure out, you know? Just essentially going to bucket this in and see if that seems to make sense. Nearly is the answer. Nearly makes sense. It's a good point, John. Like, in the pub quiz last week, one of the questions was, element number 52 is named after the Latin for Earth. What is it? And Jen and I looked at each other and went, well, Latin for Earth's terra. And it's not terbium, because that's one of 3 elements named after Itaby. What the hell is it? So I sang through the Elements song. And I couldn't find it. So I mentally counted my way around the periodic table. And went, aha! Barium! Of course, barycentric. And words like that. Makes perfect sense that sort of that means Earth. Yes. It wasn't. It was tellurium. I miscounted because there are 10 transition metal groups and I counted 8. You know what would make this whole thing make more sense? That I should really have done anyway. Don't worry, I'll break the suspense in a minute and answer the question. Just as soon as I finish shading its feet. Two. Now then, I think I do want to still have that. So, get the light coming from the other side. That makes more sense. Because otherwise, essentially, this whole thing would be in shadow. Oh. That's the way to do it. And I think that needs to show that twist a bit more. Okay, the lighting on the eyes doesn't make sense anymore, but hey, what are you going to do? Boop. Oh. Wasn't expecting it to recognise that. Oh. This guy should cast a shadow. That would make sense. Oop. That will also entirely be in shadow now I come to think of it. That shadow fall in about the right place. Needs to be a bit lower, a bit. How's that? I think a bit there. Now, I'm going to do something different on the ink layer that I haven't done before. And actually colour the bugger in. And now you can see what a multiply layer does as well. Because when I put this in, you see that shadow stays shadow, but shadow on yellow now. I'm going to put the ink layer below the pencil layer actually. Because it's a colouring layer rather than a line work layer now. But it is still ink, so it is at least telling the truth. Whoop, wrong button. A bit more and make the tool slightly smaller. Sorry, my conversation right now is absolutely thrilling, isn't it? Incidentally, weirdly, I've picked up a couple of subscribers over the course of this month, none of whom, or possibly some of whom, I think might be here for the drawing, but a few of whom have subscribed for the music that I've uploaded to it. Which might make this a bit of a weird month for them. I don't think it's going to get much more normal next month, because next month I'm planning on going back to video game streaming at least a bit. Let's give you blue eyes. Oh, but not in there because that's the light spot. Beautiful blue-eyed sulphur. Oh, thanks, Mum. Neaten up the corners of this a bit. Now, I think the arms and legs I'm going to do in a slightly lighter shade of yellow. Which might be a mistake because it makes it a little harder to see against the white. That's another bit of line that I need to erase on the pencil layer, and I'll need to touch that bit up that I've just gone over the box. It's hard to see the bits you've missed in pale yellow. I just looked at my camera and realised my hair is still not dry. I don't know if I remember, I don't know if I said this, but I might even do a highlights layer on this. Because with not having done colour before, highlights don't show up, because, you know, highlights on white doesn't do anything. Kind of wishing this weren't all done in a rough pencil now, though. Oop, wrong button. Thankfully it didn't do anything I wouldn't want it to anyway. I don't know what it did. Touch that bit up. that's oxygen. And red is, for some reason, the colour that chemists have decided means oxygen. That on that side is phosphorus. Keep going for the wrong button. Phosphorus doesn't really have a decided upon colour. So, you know, orange is fine. Gonna have to deal with that weird little bit of shading. And one up there. Like, nitrogen's blue, carbon's black, hydrogen's usually white, sometimes also black. Sulphur's yellow. Halogens are all green. And then the rest is sort of... There are several competing standards for the rest. I mean, there are two different ones the company I work at use. I can't honestly tell you which one we've settled on. Back on the shading layer. See, it's applying that same sort of slightly blue shadow to every colour. How are we for time? Yeah, I'll make a new layer. For highlights and set it to screen. And for this I'll use a warmer tone and go quite dark. And you can see what that's doing, it's doing the opposite. I want to bring pencil to the top, really. I might actually just do that whole top surface in highlight. That seems to make sense. It would make as much sense to put that whole side surface in shadow, but that's not happened now, has it? Oh, you can barely see this at all on the hands and feet. I really should have used a darker colour for them. it will work. Okay. Pleasantly surprising. I think I always start saying something that sounds like I'm going to say, I think I'm about done, and then start doing something else, don't I? I should probably stop at this point. Oh, no. Actually, may as well, because I can just book it in there. I think at that point I'd best stop before I do any more harm and call that for the day absent Sulphur. Although seen from the angle from which Sulphur is not absent, because the other side would be a bit boring really. Although I like to believe that the other side's more colourful. I could have avoided drawing that shadow because theoretically that shouldn't be touching the floor because the lanthanides and actinides are under it. So yeah, thanks for joining me. Sorry for what you joined me for. And who knows what tomorrow brings? I certainly don't. But I'll see you to find out, hopefully. Cheers.